my fellow brothers and sisters. Good morning to you. Thank you for joining me at the table for another daily devotional by Marianne Williamson from her book, A Year of Miracles. Please click the subscribe and the like button if you can. At the end of this video, I'm going to share a little bit of my health journey, an update on post-surgical stuff going on. But other than that, thank you again. Please click the subscribe and the like button. It is day 160. It is Tuesday, June 9th, and it's a reflection on the meaning of life. Don't we all love these? So, when we were born, we were programmed perfectly. I do want to say about that part in particular, although there is a lot of learning that messes up the way we think, I do think we've had a lot of bad ingrained in our DNA, and we are being born with these pessimistic, even sometimes psychopathic attitudes ingrained in our DNA. So I know she's saying here when we were born, we were programmed perfectly, but, thousands of years of systematic abuse, in my opinion, kids are being born with a lot of strikes against them. But we can change all of that by changing our behaviors, and that's what this is about. So here we go. All right. We had a natural tendency to focus on love. Our imaginations were creative and flourishing, and we knew how to use them. We were connected to a world much richer than the one we connect to now. A world full of enchantment and a sense of the miraculous. So what happened? Psychopathic, male-dominated industrial society. That's the equivalent of the devil. Okay. Why is it that we reached a certain age, looked around, and the enchantment was gone? Because we were taught to focus elsewhere on the wrong things. So if you catch yourself with your face in your phone reading about horrible things, you might want to, correct that behavior. It's not always about standing behind the skirts of, I want to know what's going on in the world today. No, it's about obsessing about the negative. Remember, you got to get your ego out of the way. Make sure you recognize that. All right. We were taught to think unnaturally. We were taught a very bad philosophy, a way of looking at the world that contradicts who we actually are. We were taught that we're separate from other people, and that we have to compete with everyone to get ahead, and that we're not quite good enough the way that we are. No doubt about it. We were taught to see the world the way that others had come to see it. It's as though as soon as we got here, we were given this sleeping pill, something that made us go into a trance and get brainwashed. The thinking of the world, which is not based on love, began pounding in our eyes and in our ears. Love is what we are born with. Fear is what we have learned here. The spiritual journey is the relinquishment or unlearning of fear and the acceptance of love back into our hearts and our minds and our physical selves. Love is the essential existential fact. To be consciously aware of it, to experience love in ourselves and others, is the meaning and the purpose of our lives. So there you go. And we can do it. And we can start helping kids be born with healthier DNA, depending on what you put in your body and what you allow yourself to absorb, brain and mind-wise. So remember, we are still in control. Nothing's out of control. That's only what you've been trained to think. It's a pathological delusion to think that we can't change things. So let's get out of the bad mindset and start putting the positive in. So when our kids are born, they're born with everything they need to embrace love. All right. So here goes my health journey. It's a bit graphic. It's about a drain. I've got 2 drains here. I have to clear them out every, like 8 hours, and one ended up getting clogged. And when I called for help, nobody was really willing to help. They set me up for a Thursday appointment, but it's all the stuff is coming out of the top, right out of the body where it's not supposed to. And I've got all these bandages and I'm trying to change stuff around. And they, they just didn't help. I called up my, you're supposed to be able to call the number it says on the paper for help. And what was going on was, as it was getting worse and worse, it was saying, the paperwork was saying, you got to go in. And when I called to come in, they were saying, no, you don't. And oh my goodness, they were trying to minimize everything. So I had to go to Google. And Google said, well, you could have something blocking it. And I thought, oh, I did see tissue in the one drain. So, I started massaging it. So Google, thank you very much. That's something I should have gotten from like a troubleshooting from the surgical staff, but I guess we got Google now. But other than that, everything's going well. I stopped the pain medication yesterday. My last dose was yesterday morning, but I think I may bring in the acetaminophen and the ibuprofen, just, definitely separate by several hours, maybe 3 hours. I would separate them. I'll take about, I don't know, maybe 800 for the ibuprofen. I'm going to have to do something like that. But other than that, everything has been going very smoothly. The surgery went smoothly. The surgical staff was incredible when I went in there on Friday. The anesthesiologist actually was the one to get the line in my hand, which was wonderful because I didn't want it in my hand because it's so painful. Any experience I've ever had since childhood where it was put in the hand. I've got a history of hospitals and health stuff going on. I'll tell you something. He put it in perfectly. I barely felt it. And it was wonderful. So, in other words, it didn't hurt. How's that? He must be an amazing phlebotomist. I don't know if all anesthesiologists are that, but he was definitely one of them. And my surgeon, he was fantastic. Dr. Jordan Fry. He's great. I wish I remembered the anesthesiologist's name. I feel so bad for them. And darn it. I'll have to look at my paperwork at some point. But ECMC was great to me. Even in lieu of, what happened with the drain, I know how busy they can get. So I'm just going to go with that positive, like I said, because I was blessed. This is one of the easiest recoveries ever. I really hardly needed any help whatsoever, and it's great. All right, so there's my health journey, and there's a wonderful daily devotional for you as well. Please click subscribe and the like. Thanks a lot, and peace out. Bye.